Hi everyone, this is meowmurai. Let's check out the Tiger-Heli Toaplan Arcade Garage running on Nintendo Switch. Now, this is the localized version for Western audiences, so we're getting some English in here. Unfortunately, this is this is quite old by now, although it won't be old for those of us here in the States. But there's already several of these Toaplan Arcade Garage games, featuring things like, Twin Cobra. Oh, sorry, not Twin Cobra, but Twin Eagle. Not Twin Eagle. What? I think it's Twin Cobra. Never mind. Anyway, let's check out this one. So you can start out with just the base game. The base game is for 35 USD, and that gives you the arcade version of Tiger-Heli. The DLC, basically, if you want to buy the DLC for 18 USD, that will give you the console versions of Tiger-Heli. Right, so you're going to get the Famicom, the PC Engine, the Mega Drive, and you'll also get Star. That's part of the arcade collection. And then there's also the puzzle game. The name escapes me. What is it called? Teki Paki. So just the base game, you'll get Tiger-Heli. You get the arcade version, along with all the cool little gadgets that Toaplan has. So let's check that out. Okay, debuted in November 1987, published by Taito. A legendary title that started Toaplan's golden age. Take control of the attack helicopter Battle Tiger and destroy the enemy Mega Fortress. Again, we have the arcade version, the super easy version, the custom version, which you can tweak like a bunch of different settings. The two-player version. All right, there's an arcade challenge. And then here's the DLC portions of it. Right, you get the Famicom version, the PC Engine version, which is my personal favorite, the Mega Drive version, which is also very, very good. That's actually one of the versions, the very first versions that I ever purchased for the Mega Drive. Then we have the Twin Cobra Arcade, right, and the NES, Genesis versions of that same game. Yeah, recently I was just playing same, which is Fire Shark. So hopefully that comes out over here as well. We have the original Tiger-Heli, right? This one may be hard for modern audiences to get into. This one debuted in October 1985, published by Taito. A doubly monumental game by virtue of being the first vertical shooter by Toaplan and of establishing the basic formula for a game that came later in the genre, Tiger-Heli, strike the enemy bases. I remember this one distinctly because I didn't own an NES at the time, so I played the arcade version of this quite a bit. Got the super easy version, custom version again, arcade challenges, Famicom version, and the NES version, which I believe are basically the same. I mean, the Famicom version came on... oh no, this wasn't the disc version. Yeah, this is just the regular cartridge version. I think just the English translation is different. And then there's Get Star, which debuted in March 1986, published by Taito. First side-scrolling beat-em-up by Toaplan, or Toaplan, depending on how you want to pronounce it. You are Get Star, a high school robot sent from the Earth on a mission to free 5 planets from the yoke of their oppressive overlord. So we'll check these out really quick. There's a lot of content in here, and there's like a ton of options all the way through this. So there's a lot to cover. If you're purchasing this, and I know the price seems a little higher, but you're getting like a lot of extras, and you're getting all of the different tweaks that you can apply when playing. Even if you're just buying the base version, just the arcade version, there's a lot of stuff in here that makes it easier for modern audiences. Or if you just want the raw challenge of the original game, you can certainly have that as well. Features Tate mode. And lots of attention to detail, runs perfectly. So yeah, definitely something that I'd be happy to pay for. I don't necessarily love all these gadgets, but it is interesting to have them here. But again, if you don't love all the gadgets, you know what? You can change them. Right? You can set the number of lives and bombs and auto bombs and the hitbox size, enemy bullet speed. I mean, there's a ton of stuff which this is the only way to get all of these tweaks Even if you're playing something on MAME, you're just getting the arcade version with just the dip switches that were available from the arcade board. But here you're getting much more beyond that. Again, you can set your screen how you'd like. I think in this case we actually like stretched because it doesn't distort the image, right? So you're getting an even stretch all across vertical and horizontal, but it does that way fills the screen. Again, you can turn on the scan lines if you want, and the smoothing if you want, the wallpapers if you want. I've turned off all the gadgets, but let's turn them back on. Just so you can really see all the cool stuff that they put in here. And again, you can set the music. You can have the arcade music or some different renditions of the game music from the different platforms. Again, personally, I think this still looks pretty good. I think the music's really, really good too. It's super catchy. You're gonna hear a lot of it though. Okay, well, maybe this is not the best showcase of how to play the game. And it is nice to have an arcade perfect version of this without resorting to running an emulator. I mean, this is still emulated, but there's a lot more care and craft in this. And these are from the original developers. A lot of these folks that are on the part of M2 or originally from Toaplan. Yeah, I think a lot of people, at least of a certain generation, if you're a Generation Xer, you're probably going to remember the Genesis version. At the time that it was released, shmups were still pretty hot. Unlike now, where you probably wouldn't normally play a shmup, or nothing's really available. It's not a top genre anymore. And if I remember right, Tiger-Heli came pretty early into the Genesis, so I think that port probably was pretty popular. Since there wasn't a ton of stuff to play on the Genesis when it was released as well. I mean, that's kind of how I ran into it. Yeah, unfortunately, like most Toaplan games, the scaling is rather dramatic in this game. I mean, it gets harder. Like, the better you are, the better equipped your ship is, the harder the game gets. So you really have to pay attention. Because things don't necessarily get any easier for you when you're when you're all powered up. And technically, they get much more difficult. I mean, the difficulty isn't as dastardly as some of their later titles. You know, I'm thinking of things like, especially like Zero Wing, which, you know, kind of got a little bit ridiculous in this difficulty scaling, and it's, you know, a bit of AI. I think that later games would actually kind of predict where you would be and shoot there ahead of time. You know, they were very much predictive and not reactionary. This game doesn't suffer from that as much, but later games do. I said these games got pretty hard. People talk about hard games now, but they really had no idea how hard games were back in the early days of arcade gaming. Games in the 80s and 90s are, you know, I think it's significantly harder than games in the 2000s and beyond. But in a way, that's good, because now more people can play games and they can actually see the end of them. Whereas back in these days, it was, you know, not too often that you would ever get all the way to the end of a game. Especially in the arcade, which was, you know, meant to take your money, and you weren't ever meant to be good enough to see the end of the game. And the overall audience was younger during this time period. Look how hard it is just to even get a power-up. The way the thing flies across the screen and the enemy patterns, they don't they work against you for sure. All right. Looking like at the US version, retitled Twin Cobra. Same game fundamentally, though. And again, you see that the options are actually separate. Oh, we got no M2 gadgets for this one. That's right, Romstar, boy. That's a name that doesn't exist anymore. I hope they manage to get all these out before the Switch 2 comes out. It'd be kind of a shame that they would take so long in the porting process that you know, they'd start losing their audience because people would be buying the new system. Like, you gotta get it out in time while, when we still want to buy it. Oh my goodness. Bullets, bullets, bullets. Yeah, you see the major difference here is that it's not the checkpoint system. It actually respawns in-game. Which essentially makes the game easier. Though not by a whole lot. I think modern gamers, I mean, this is the style that they'd be used to, is just continuing in-game. And not having to, reload a level to the nearest checkpoint. Yeah, you can see, I mean, it wasn't any easier for me, at least. I think there's some slight, AI adjustments too, to make it slightly more fair. But again, not by a whole lot. I mean, the game's gonna be hard no matter what. Alright, then we move down to the console versions, which these are the most interesting, I think. So let's check it out. The Famicom version. Which, is actually still pretty good, all things considered. But again, my personal favorite is the PC Engine version. But, some people may also prefer the Genesis version, or the Mega Drive version. And, considering the power of the NES, this is really good. Back in these days, I wouldn't have appreciated the work that went into the console versions as much. I really wanted arcade perfection back in these days, which these systems just would obviously not be capable of doing. But now that I play them, as somebody who's older and realizes the limitations of these systems, I can say they did a good job. Even if this was like my only exposure to Kyukyoku Tiger, I think I still would have been happy with it. But I love me some shmups. I mean, I occasionally slip and still call them shooters, which makes generations younger than me wonder about my sanity, since shooter is pretty much nowadays only associated with the first-person shooter. Sometimes third-person shooter as well. Which, they still have the same basic fundamentals as a 2D shooter. You're still gauging your your distances, recognizing patterns. You're still shooting at targets, But obviously, it's a much different experience playing a third-person or first-person shooter versus this kind of shooter. That's like, you know, GameSack may give me a hard time about calling them shmups, but that's what they are now, you know? Sometimes the meanings of words change over time. Yeah, it's just the way it is. I think that's okay. I mean, I gotta say that, I mean, the word shmup, it doesn't really sound good. It's not a good sounding description for a genre. Of course, if you say shoot 'em up, you know, what it's really short for, I mean, that sounds like you're 1,000 years old, you know? Same thing when I hear people say beat 'em up, I'm like, really? Beat 'em up, huh? Oh, look at this jerk. It's so hard. It's such a hard game. They didn't really give you that many breaks from the arcade version. Yeah, I think the most playable, like the version that I think a lot of people would be able to get into the easiest is the Mega Drive version, the Genesis version, because the balance changes they did in that game, that version of the game, do make it a little easier to play, at least up until the last level, where it just gets, you know, super ridiculous. I think this version is a little bit closer to the arcade version, while still having some originality as well. Because it's not 100% arcade perfect, but it's much closer than the Mega Drive version. Unfortunately, that also means the difficulty is pretty hard too. Whereas, you know, I mean, I have memories of beating the Genesis version, you know, actually seeing the loop start over and getting an ending, or what was considered an ending back in those days. But I don't think I've ever seen the loop at the end of this game. You know, it's pretty hard, much like the arcade game, unless you spend the coins, which would be a lot. It would be a large number of coins before you finally see the end of this game. I know, it doesn't help that the power-ups actually seem to run away from you. Again, very decent conversion. You know, it's closer in because it's doesn't feature the long aspect ratio, but very, very good for what they had at the time. Certainly one of the PC Engine's top titles. You know, unfortunately, we never got a TurboGrafx version. Yeah, and you see this features the Japanese version, which doesn't feature in-game continues, you know, respawning. Anyway, I'm pretty happy. I can play that mode forever. Let's check out the Mega Drive version. Boy, Treco. Again, names we haven't seen forever. Yeah, you can already tell it's a much different looking and sounding version of the game. And even though it's a hard game, it's a a bit easier than the PC Engine version. Maybe that's not the best way to show it. I do like this version a lot. I don't want to downplay it too much. I think in the case of this game, I think the background music is just a little bit better than the PC Engine version. At least in some instances. This first song definitely, or at least to me, sounds better. That's not true later on, but certainly the first 2 or 3 stages sound really good. Yeah, clearly I am out of practice. I have not played the Mega Drive version for a very long time. And then the NES version and the Genesis version. I don't think there's much difference between the Famicom and the NES version, if I'm understanding correctly, if I remember correctly. I think outside of the title screen and the ending sequence, I think they're basically the same. Ah, yes. The Flickerfest that is the NES. At least this one just respawns you without repainting the screen or using a checkpoint. Again, I don't know if that's easier, but I think it doesn't interrupt the pace of the game. Yeah. I mean, this way would become the default for shmups, going forward. But for a long time we're still using checkpoint systems. And yeah, for what it is, really good port. Or conversion. I guess it's not really a port. Yeah, because there's no assets from the original game used at all. I had to build this from the ground up. Oh, you get the idea. Then let's look at the Genesis version. I believe this is basically the same as the Mega Drive version. I don't think there's that many differences, if there are any at all. To me, this one was notable because, not only was it one of the earlier Genesis games, but you could actually set auto-fire on this game as well. Which, again, not really that common. Developers still wanting you to just beat on those buttons over and over again. For the most part. Excuse me. Hiccup all of a sudden. No, I mean largely the same. 17 credits. Seems like giving you 17 credits is a lot, but it's not. The game is hard. It becomes enough credits eventually once you start learning the game, but certainly not when you first start playing. Then the original Tiger-Heli. Again, I don't know how many people remember this game. It is a slow-paced game, considering how modern games play. So it may not be for everyone. But, I still think it's good. Oh, my goodness. Like I said, you don't realize how hard games used to be until you start playing them again. It's like, man, these games are hard. Oh, that's right, the Famicom and the NES version of Tiger-Heli. Like I said, I remember liking the Tiger-Heli on NES quite a bit. At least at the time. I mean, this feels like a dramatically different version of the game, though. Oh, jeez. Holy crap, I'm not paying attention. I'm such a sucker. I can't believe I fell for that guy twice. I don't know, it seems so primitive compared to Kyukyoku Tiger? Kyukyoku. It's hard for me to say. Kyukyoku Tiger. And just for the sake of completeness, you know, we can look at the Famicom version. I think it's the same as the NES version, though. got hit there. The Autobomb working. Kinda forgot these little helper copters are only temporary. Okay, well, like I said, I think you get the idea. Let's take a look at Guest Star. So this is their first side-scrolling beat 'em up. I'm not sure if they even had a follow-up. I don't know if they made like another one or not. Yeah, obviously more in line with like a Kung Fu Master than what we consider a beat 'em up nowadays. But again, I never saw the arcade version of this. I don't even know if it was ever released in the States or not. Yeah, I don't believe so. Let's see, and then the overseas version called Guardian. I believe these are the same, though. I don't think they changed anything outside of the name. Oh no. Oh boy. Oh, maybe the boss is a little harder. Alright, and I think that's basically everything as far as Kyukyoku Tiger and Tiger-Heli are concerned. Again, there is one other game that's included in this pack if you decide to buy the DLC. And that is the Tekipaki. So it's their puzzle game. I'm not sure how big of a following Tekipaki had. You know, block drop madness. I mean, this is more of a nice to have than I think anybody who's like into Kyukyoku Tiger would be into. But it's a piece of Toaplan history. And it is interesting to see that they made a lot of diverse games. Even though they're well known for shmups, they did produce other things. I know, this thing gets really hard really fast. I mean, it's already speeding up. It's just the first round. My goodness. So there you go. That's everything that's available in the Kyukyoku Tiger series. That's part of the Toaplan Arcade Garage. Again, it's available for the first time in the West. So we're getting a lot of these versions that were not readily available for us over here. And it's nice to see all these pieces of text translated into English. If you haven't already bought the import versions, then I think this is a good time to purchase these U.S. translations. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. I mean, if you just buy the base pack, which includes the arcade versions of the games, I think you'll still be pretty satisfied for $35. And you're also getting, a lot of the improvements. You're getting the other versions that allow for a little bit of customization and changing some aspects of the gameplay. And if you decide to go for the DLC, which includes all the home versions, along with Tekipaki and Guest Star, I think you're still getting even more value out of that. For just another $18. I think the price is just about right. I know there's always some hesitation from more modern folks who are looking at these games and going, well, I don't want to pay that much money for them. And I think they found the right price point. These were going for much more on the Japanese stores. And you're getting a lot of quality out of it, versus, you may be able to pay $2 or $3 for a modern day shmup on your phone, but you're also getting, a much less, you're not getting a quality version of a game like you are here. So definitely check it out if you're a fan of old school shmups. I think you'll enjoy it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.